Technochat, Costa Rica, con la conducción de Emilio Fabio.
Gracias por acompañarnos a otra sección de tecnología Technochat. Ahora estamos con nuestro futurista tecnólogo Gerd Leonhard, quien viene a dar su presentación en la Expo Telecom. Básicamente, Gerd es especialista futurista en temas de tecnología y asesor de grandes marcas como Google y YouTube, quien estará compartiendo hoy un poco su visión. Thanks, Gerd, to be here with us. My first question will be about your vision for the next 20 years in terms of technology. How will be the future of the technology in the next 20 years and beyond?
Well, 20 years is a long time, and let's start a little bit earlier. I think what we're seeing now is that the internet is finally becoming useful. It wasn't really useful until we had mobile phones.
Okay.
So now the internet is moving entirely away from the computer into mobile devices. And it's also becoming social, connected. So most business now is about social connectivity. It's becoming localized using local check-in and those kind of things, right? And most importantly, the underprivileged, so-called, in emerging countries, they will all pick up mobile devices, cheap mobile devices, and internet access in the next 5 years. So we're going to have up to 5 billion people connected to the global brain, right? And that will change the world completely. So we will lose the Anglo-American dominance of the internet, of Hollywood. We will lose the European influence of creating new things, so that will move east. So big societal shift. We will also have entirely new ways of how people use technology, augmented reality, 3D, implants, bionics, robotics. That's going to be quite mind-boggling. Most importantly, I think that we need to see that technology is not the reason for us to exist, right? It's making technology human that's going to be the really, really important part, right? And also using technology to collaborate to solve very large problems. Poverty, health, medicine. So we're moving to the world of ownership, where you can own medication, like pharma companies do, to the world of being a networked. I call this from ego to eco, moving to an ecosystem, a biosphere. So the global problems, for example, of global warming, and which we have to solve the next, 5 months, 20 years for sure, can only be solved together, and can only be solved if we're thinking of ourselves as an ecosystem, an interconnected system. And that's also where all of the new business will come from. Because generating things that are mutually beneficial is probably the only way to generate future revenues.
Perfect. And in the term of green, okay, you were talking about the synergy that maybe could be there, but what will be the future between technologies and green at the same time?
Yeah, before I answer that, I should add that I think all of the emphasis of power is shifting away from traditional countries like America and Europe and Japan to the developing countries. Because developing countries, and that includes of course Central America, but also Brazil and Southern America and Indonesia and India and Africa, they have more of a forward-looking way of life because they have things to gain. Americans are now chasing the American dream forever and not finding it anymore, and Europeans are stuck. They're saturated. And so we're going to see in the next 10 years that huge shift to emerging economies for growth, but also for sensible growth. And I think this is the biggest part of that we don't copy what we used to do 20 years ago, which basically was the idea of growth at all costs. So no matter what, we would get more cars, we get more electricity, and we blow everything up, right? That is not going to work, but it has to be sustainable growth. So it has to be sensible, it has to give back to the environment. I think one of the biggest areas for Costa Rica will be sustainable tourism, where Costa Rica could be a leader. I think because of its nature, just like Switzerland is a leader there already, in giving back to what you've taken. Basically, I think that the next 20 years will make us collaborate because there's going to be system collapses. I mean, we're going to have a climate bankruptcy, basically. And that the same goes, for example, for systems like intellectual property, where you can't use this because of 20-year-old rules. There's going to be a lot of things there that will force us to collaborate or die. And that's where the green part comes in, right? So there would be no reason for me to drive an electric car unless I care about the carbon, right? Because I have enough money to buy a Mercedes 500, right? If I was rich, right? But there has to be a thinking of a larger story than my own personal success at all costs. And I think we're seeing that now emerging in Brazil. We're seeing that emerging all over the world in different places.
Thank you for your time. Thank
You're
you to
welcome.
be here.
Hasta una próxima edición de Technochat Costa Rica con Emilio Fabi. Technochat.